What's going on, scholars? We're now going to continue on with example number 4.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. And now we're going to get to some real binomial problems now. Because it's not going to be this little, okay, x plus y to the power of something. Now we're going to put some numbers in here, which is now going to create just a tad bit more crustiness. Okay, but this should be okay here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to purposely use Pascal's triangle. Okay, now we're not going to give you Pascal's triangle on the test. If you're like, hey, all right, it's not on your SL packet, and if it's not on the SL packet, then you don't ever get it. So if you're going to use Pascal's triangle, you're going to have to derive it yourself, and don't try to creep. All right, that's all I got to say right there. So we're going to derive this right now, this expansion using Pascal's triangle. So coming over here, we notice that our exponent is 4. So I know I'm going to use this guy right here as my coefficient. I'm going to use 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. That should make sense, right? Because that 4 there. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my coefficients. I know I'm going to use 1, put some space in there, 4, 6, 4, 1. Put some space in there because we're going to put some coefficients in there, okay? I'm sorry, we have a coefficient, we're going to put our variables. Now, we're going to follow the pattern that Mr. Nzunla keeps going over with us, and that is we start with not x now. See, this is a little different now. Our first term is 2x. That's our first term. So we take our first term and we raise it to the power of 4. So our first term becomes 2x to the power of 4. First term to the power of 4, and then we do 1 less, right? We do 1 less. So same thing here, 2x to the power of 3. 4, 3, 2, 2x to the power of 2, and then 1. And then obviously we don't put the 0 there because it's going to be 1. So we're going to stop right there. So same thing, take the first term. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll clean that up next line. All right. Now let's go to our -3. Okay, and I'm going to multiply everything by -3, but now we start with 0, right? So this is really -3 to the power of 0. We don't do that. So right here I'm going to do -3. And by the way, this is actually very important here. What I'm saying is that this term is not 3. Think of this as -3, because now what happens is when you have a minus sign, the pattern alternates. So really what's happening is that I already know that the answer will be positive, negative. Okay, but we don't want to just teach you all these little rules. Okay, we want you to understand why is it positive, negative, and you'll find out why by plugging in -3. So -3 is our second term. Okay, so when I plug this in right now, I'm not going to do 3. I'm going to do -3. Okay, so this was a 0, and then it's going to be 1, -3, 2, -3, 3, and then -3, 4 there. Okay. See, now here it's not as easy as the previous problems. Right now we got to clean this stuff up. So let's do this. 2 to the power of 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Times 4 is 16. So this whole thing is 16. Check this out. This is 2 to the power of 4 is 16, and then you have to raise x to the power of 4. So x to the power of 4. And then you multiply that by 1, and then you just get that there. So very important. You raise the coefficient to the power of 4, and you raise x to the power of 4. Okay. Now watch this. All right. I don't know my sign yet, so I'm not going to put plus or minus. Let's check this out here. We need to do 2x to the power of 3. So 2 to the power of 3 is 8. Okay, check this out. 4 times 8, right? 2 to the power of 3 is 8. X to the power of 3. And then multiply by -3. So we have to multiply all this together now. So 4 times 8 times -3. Just so now I'm going to mess up here. 4 times 8 times -3. So it's going to give us a negative. Because a positive times a positive times a negative. Okay? And that's going to be negative 96x cubed. Check this out. Because when I do -3 to the power of 1, isn't that just -3 right there? Okay? So plus minus. And I'll talk about at the end why that this will always work, but we want to show our work here. So we have our first two terms. We clean that up. We got this guy We cleaned all this up and got that dude. Let's now clean this guy up here. Okay? So I'm going to drop my 6 down. Let's clean this up. 2 to the power 2 is 4. X to the power of 2. Let me write that a little nicer there. There you go. X to the power 2 is x squared times, check this out now, negative 3 squared. Right? Negative 3 times negative 3 gives us a positive 9 right there. So we have to multiply all of these guys right here. 6 times 4 times 9. It's going to give us a positive 216. 6 times 4 times 9. And then we tack on our x squared right there. Lastly, actually, we still have these two guys right here. So again, plus, minus, plus. Let's see if this is going to happen again. Are we going to get minus? Well, this is 4. 2x to the power of 1 is just itself. Right? That's just going to be 2x. Negative 3 cubed means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. 2 negatives make a positive. So a positive times a negative, we know is going to be a negative answer. So 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. So this right here will give us 27, which is going to give us a negative. Okay. Lastly, let's go ahead and multiply all these together. So 4 times 2 times negative 27 is a 216. And should I supposed to get there? 4 times 2 times 27. All right, that's what we're going to get right there. So 216x. So that's what we're going to get right there. And then last but not least, we want to do this guy right here. Negative 3 to the power of 4, which means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Okay, so I think that's going to give us like 81, right? So positive 81. Okay, so let me just make a note here real quick before we go on to our second example. And that is, if you ever have a negative exponent, a negative base, okay? If you have a negative base, you should know, this is a review if you've kind of forgotten that, if our exponent is odd, look at what the result is. If the exponent is odd, you always get a negative answer. If the exponent right here, let's see, is even, like these two guys, then you always get a positive answer. So that's kind of why that this works here. Why it's always plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus is because that all the odd numbers will have a negative number, and then all the even like exponents are going to be positive. So that's why that works there. Okay, we're going to go on now to this guy right here. I'm going to move just a slightly quicker, but same process here. Okay, because it's 4, I'm going to use the same coefficients. So I'm going to still use the 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Which is why it's good to leave a lot of room on your paper. Just kind of expand it out across your paper there. And I'm going to take my first term, x to the power 4, then x to the power 3, x to the power 2, x to the power 1. Same thing, right? I take my first term, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I take my second term, negative 2y, and I raise it, then I start with 1, right? So we go backwards. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's nothing there. But here we're going to put in parentheses negative 2y to the power of 1, negative 2y to the power of 2, negative 2y to the power of 3, and negative 2y to the power of 4 here. Okay? So now we've got to clean this all up. And we'll do some calculations right now. So let's start here. Easy, right? X to the power 4. So x to the power 4. Okay? Just by looking at this, you should now, I know since this is a negative base with an odd exponent, the answer is going to be negative. Okay, so that should be, your intuition should start to kick in on that. 4 times negative 2 is going to give us our negative 8s. And we have x cubed y. Look right here. X cubed y. If I multiply those, they just become right there. And then 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 right there. Okay? I know it's going to be plus negative base with a even exponent, plus there. So let's go ahead and do this. 6x squared, but then I'm going to clean this up now. I'm going to clean that up. Negative 2 squared is 4, and then y squared. So notice how I show my work is I kind of write below it so that there's no more, or actually really what I'm doing is that I'm cleaning this up so that means I can actually multiply it together. Okay, so 6 times 4 is 24, x squared, y squared. Okay, and then I know this is going to be a negative now because of my odd there. So let's clean this up. 4x times negative 2 cubed is 8y cubed. So 4 times 8 is 32xy cubed. Okay, and last but not least, this would be a positive. 2 to the power 4 is 16, and then y to the power of 4. So I like the binomial theorem and this whole Pascal's triangle because we're not doing this by hand. So if you really want to respect Pascal, okay, and you might want to just try 1 or 2 by hand, okay, but so there it is.